Why is Maribel's body covered in burns, but her hair and her clothes aren't nearly as burnt? Both sides of her body are burnt. It would take the investigators 3 months to figure out exactly what happened to Maribel. They had a hunch, but to get the exact evidence that they needed to arrest Ka, it would take 3 months. The experts working on the case said, she has some deep tissue burns, probably the worst I'd ever seen. Another officer states, I mean, it's clear the child was burned, but the source was mysterious. The burns are not typical of fire or acid injuries even, and there is damage to the baby's clothing, but not too much. And specifically, she had radiation burns. That's very specific. One of the most common ways people get radiation burns is through chemotherapy. If the radiation affects the healthy tissues, then it could lead to internal burns. Or let's say you have repeated and prolonged exposure to X-rays performed on the body. It could cause radiation burns. Or you could be near a nuclear accident. That's a radiation burn. Or you're mishandling radioactive materials. Those are the most common ways. This makes the situation even more confusing because by all accounts, Maribel is a healthy baby. She likely did not have enough X-rays to warrant radiation burns. She did not need chemotherapy. She's not near a nuclear plant or an accident. She would not be in a setting where she would handle radioactive materials. It's not something you just buy at the store. She's 2 months old, and the level of the burns are extensive. The burns run so deep that it fried her internal organs. The police are quick to look for any other cases where this happened, where an infant was found deceased and had extensive radiation burns on their body. They come across 2. Joshua Malden from Texas, his 2-month-old daughter was found with 2nd and 3rd degree burns to her left ear, cheek, hand, and shoulder. She did survive, but her left ear had to be partially amputated and she had to have several skin grafts because of radiation burns. Joshua originally told the authorities that his daughter had suffered from severe sunburns, and when the authorities told him, "We don't believe you," he stated, "Well, I might have also accidentally spilled hot water on her while I was making some coffee." But that all turned out to be a lie. Then in Ohio, China Arnold's 28-day-old daughter, Paris, was found badly burned after a fight with China's boyfriend. So China and her boyfriend get into this huge argument where the boyfriend is like, "That's not my baby. You slept with somebody else. That's not my baby." They get into this huge argument, and then Paris, the 28-day-old daughter, is found dead with internal radiation burns. In both cases, the children's injuries were consistent with baby Maribel. And in both cases, both children had been microwaved.
Have you ever heard the wedding theory?
Wedding.
Why we have a best man?
No.
You ever heard that?
No.
Okay, so check this out. So the reason that we have a best man by our side is for this one simple reason. So back in medieval times, when somebody would get married, if there's an opposing country or opposing like kingdom that doesn't like them, they would send people to go after a wedding and steal the bride.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, that was a common thing. The Middle Ages were just fucked up like that.
Yeah.
Now, pretty much, since they knew this, since they knew somebody's having a wedding and, oh, yo, they're gonna send the ops to come take the bride. All of the bridegrooms, they all knew, okay, we have to be ready we have to be on timing in case they come through, and so we can fight them and protect the bride.
Yeah.
So, the grooms. Wait, is it bridegrooms?
No, bridesmaids and then groomsmen.
Groomsmen, my bad. All the groomsmen.
Yeah.
So all the groomsmen, they had to be on timing.
What, to protect
them.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So pretty much, there was one person specifically, and his title was the best swordsman.
Oh, and that would be like the number one.
And he would always stand right beside the groom whenever the wedding was happening, the whole ritual and ceremony.
Yeah.
The best swordsman is right beside him.
Okay.
But over time, obviously, less and less of that happened, and the best swordsman became the best man.
Oh, okay. So it was just like your protector. Okay.
Now check this out.
Okay.
The reason all of the bridesmaids wear the same dress is for the same reason of people coming in and trying to take the bride. Because if they're all wearing the same dress, they don't know who.
This movie's definitely better than the first one, but still outrageous. Let's do it. Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2 picks up after the events of the first movie. So they're now calling those events the 100-Acre Woods Massacre. And a lot of people in the town don't believe Christopher Robin, and they actually think that he was responsible because they never found like Winnie the Pooh and friends. And in this universe, they actually made a movie based on the events, and that's what Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey Part 1 is. It's super meta. So again, Christopher Robin is obviously traumatized from these events, and he's like an outcast because people think that he's a murderer. One of the people that does believe him is his childhood friend Lexi, as well as his parents and his younger sister, who they call Bunny. So Christopher Robin's obviously got some fucking PTSD, right? And he starts having these like weird dreams about Winnie the Pooh. And we also learn that Christopher Robin had a younger brother named Billy who got kidnapped from a birthday party years prior when they were kids. He was never seen again, and the person that took him was never found. So Christopher starts going to a hypnotherapist to kind of like work through these issues and see if he can like remember anything, like of his brother's kidnapping, if he can remember who took him. Meanwhile, we see that deep in the 100-acre woods, the feral animals are still being feral as fuck. We see this super gnarly kill scene of these girls in this camper. So obviously we have Winnie the Pooh. We have Piglet, thought he died in the first movie, he didn't. But we also have Owl, who is arguably like the scariest looking one. And we learn that the creatures are now forced to hide out because their home was burned down by people who came in and tried to burn it down after the massacre, like the ones that actually believed Christopher Robin. So now they're even more feral and they're more angry. And Owl talks to Pooh, who's obviously their leader, and Owl is the wise one, and he convinces Pooh that, you know what, we can't wait for more people to come into the woods, we need to go get them. We need to go into the town and we need to show them a lesson. So there are still a handful of townspeople that believe Christopher Robin, so one day 3 of them go into the woods to hunt out Winnie the Pooh and friends. One of those hunters is named Aaron. They actually end up finding them and they proceed to kill Piglet, actually dead this time. And then Pooh kills the other ones and he's like, you know what, Owl? You might be right. We might need to go into town. One of them, though, Aaron, actually ends up surviving, and he gets treated at the hospital that Christopher Robin is in. So Christopher sees him and he knows that something's up. Eventually, Christopher ends up getting fired from his job because of the backlash the hospital is getting for letting him work there. Even though he's been fired, Christopher goes back to the hospital to talk to Aaron, whose face is like severely disfigured from the attack. I can't show you this picture, it's too gory. And he basically confirms to Christopher that Winnie the Pooh and friends were the ones that did this. While at the hospital, Christopher Robin also runs into a janitor whose last name is Cavendish. And because of the hypnotherapy that Christopher is going through, he recognizes him and he starts to have like flashbacks and he recognizes him as the guy who kidnapped Billy, his brother. So Chris follows Cavendish home and confronts him about this. And he admits that he was working at the time for this guy named Dr. Gallup. And Dr. Gallup hired this guy to kidnap children to then bring back to Dr. Gallup so he could experiment on them. And the experiments that he was doing had to do with like transferring animal genes. He goes on to tell Christopher that none of the kids survived and he had to bury all of them in the 100-acre woods. But when he went back the next day, all of the bodies were gone. And not like dug up gone, but gone as in they crawled their way out of their graves. But they didn't come back as humans. They came back as these half-human, half-animal hybrid creatures. And those kids are now Winnie the Pooh and friends. And Christopher has this realization that Winnie the Pooh himself is his brother Billy. Cavendish, being overcome with guilt and now like making this confession, offs himself in front of Christopher. So through this, Christopher also like somehow understands that the animals are now going to go into town and attack people. So he goes in and tries to warn everybody, but of course everybody already thinks he's fucking crazy, so nobody listens. But they should have, because sure enough, night falls and the creatures make their way into town. So we have Pooh, Piglet, Owl, and Tigger, who we see for the first time. And they spread out, of course. So Pooh and Owl go after Lexi, who is Christopher's childhood friend. She manages to escape them. Then Pooh proceeds to go to Christopher Robin's house where he brutally kills Christopher Robin's parents. But his little sister Bunny manages to run away and escape. And then they arrive at this rave that is going on in the town. And this is really Tigger's moment to shine. This is the first time we really see his like full character. And he just fucking goes at them. He obliterates them like left and right, just dropping like flies. So Christopher arrives at the rave and he manages to shoot Tigger and stop him. And he now learns that Bunny has been kidnapped. So he goes into the 100-acre woods to save her. And of course, he comes face to face with Pooh, who we now know is his brother. A struggle ensues between the two of them, but eventually Christopher calls out Billy to him, like calling him by his human name. And it makes Pooh stop for a second and like almost reach awareness. But then he snaps out of it and accuses Christopher of abandoning them, which then led to Eeyore's death years prior. They continue fighting and Christopher is almost killed, but then Lexi comes in and saves the day. And she distracts Pooh enough for Christopher to be able to kill him with an axe. So it's over. Or so we think. Police show up, they end up finding Bunny, she's safe, and they also see camera footage from the rave, so they now know that these creatures are very real and what Christopher Robin has been saying the whole time is the truth. So he gets cleared of any wrongdoing and goes on to live a happy life with his little sister. Just kidding, because Owl is still alive. He finds the bodies of Pooh, Tigger, and Piglet and brings them back to their underground lair. And he vows to find a way to revive them and get revenge on Christopher Robin in the town once and for all. And the movie ends setting us up perfectly for a third movie.
The Craziest Weapons You Won't Believe Exist Part 2. Developed by the United States for use in World War II, bat bombs were designed by a dentist named Lytle S. Adams. Instead of one explosive, large shells were separated into thousands of tiny compartments, each one containing a hibernating Mexican free-tailed bat with a tiny timed incendiary bomb attached to it. The casings would be dropped from a bomber at dawn and would parachute down, opening to release the bats. Created again during World War II by the American Office of Strategic Services, Who Me was a stench weapon to be used against German officers by the French resistance. This spray smelled of poop and was to be carried in small, easy-to-conceal dispensers that the resistance member could covertly use. The idea was that if a German officer was sprayed, it would humiliate him and decrease morale in the occupying forces' ranks.
If you hear a voice calling you in Minnesota, run away. Hello, my name is Urban. I am a Wendigo, and we are the most misunderstood creature. We roam the frozen woods of Minnesota, preying on mankind. For some of us, we started out as regular people, struggling through a hard winter, where there was not enough food to survive, so we resorted to eating another human. But this put a curse on us, and we were banished from our tribe to roam the woods. Our bodies started to change, growing taller, skinnier. Our skin started to decay, and our thoughts became animalistic. We became fixated on the taste of human, so we hide in the trees, mimicking children and women, waiting for someone to come to the rescue. In some cases, we let you peacefully rest, but if we are interrupted in our meal, we will have to leave you, but you will soon join us again as one of us. So if you are ever in Minnesota, remember,
he would wear this terrifying mask while he murdered his victims. Hello, true crimers. This is the case of the Marle family. Viewer discretion is advised. John Lawrence Marle was born in 1941, and he had a very famous mother. His mother was an Oscar-winning actress named Mercedes McCambridge. She won the 1949 Best Supporting Actress Oscar for the movie All the King's Men. Many, many years later, she would also be the voice of the demon in The Exorcist. She gave John a relatively normal upbringing. He was considered to be a very brilliant young man growing up through school. By 1973, he earned a PhD. A few years before that, in 1968, he would marry Christina Mull, and then the two of them would eventually have 2 girls together. Eventually, the Marle family would relocate to Little Rock, Arkansas, and moved into this home here on Main Street. On November 16, 1987, John's attorney would get a phone call sometime around 4 o'clock in the morning. The call sounded urgent, and he was trying to tell his lawyer, "Please come here to my house immediately." And then he hung up. The lawyer tried calling back multiple times, but John didn't answer, so the lawyer called police. Police arrived at the house at 4:17 a.m. Police entered the home, and just in front of his own desk laid the body of John Marle. He had been shot through both sides of his head. The guns were lying at each side of his body, but he was not the only one. His 45-year-old wife, Christina, and their 2 daughters, 13-year-old Amy and 9-year-old Suzanne, were also found shot to death in the house. Each of them had been shot multiple times. Lying next to John's body was this mask. There was blood on the mask, like spatter-type blood, which would indicate to police that the killer was wearing the mask when the shots were fired. But who fired the shots? Well, John Marle did. When John Marle called his attorney at 4 o'clock in the morning, he had already shot and killed his wife and his 2 daughters. It's then believed he removed the mask, doesn't really know why he was wearing it to begin with, if his plan was to die that night. He then takes 2 different guns, puts them to both sides of his head, and pulls the triggers. Well, why did he do it? Well, 3 days prior, he was fired from his job. And not for normal reasons like, not showing up. He was caught embezzling money. He was working for Stevens Incorporated, which was like a futures trading type place. I'm not 100% sure what that is, but his employers caught on to this pretty significant embezzlement scheme, and he was fired for it. And the murder-suicide was not a spur-of-the-moment thing. In the home, they found a handwritten note that John wrote to his mother, who knew nothing of any of this going on. They also found a handwritten suicide note. He actually time-stamped that note to about a couple of hours before he called his attorney. They also discovered that John, just a few days prior, like the day after he got fired, he voided his previous will and then rewrote a will in just his handwriting. And in that will, it excluded his wife and kids because he knew they would be dead. John was always described as a family man, someone who loved his wife and his daughters. He always seemed to be well respected, well liked, but he was also doing bad things at work. And perhaps the idea of being caught and perhaps going to jail for all of this, maybe he did not want to be embarrassed by it, and maybe he didn't want his family to be embarrassed of him and have to live with that. Obviously, that's a very shitty reason to kill your family, especially your 2 children. But that's likely what his thought process was. But it didn't need to happen. John could have just simply manned up, paid for his mistakes, but instead he made his wife and 2 daughters pay for his mistakes as well.
I collect haunted dolls, and I've been getting a lot of comments recently saying that one of my haunted dolls is giving them nosebleeds when they watch my videos. The haunted doll I'm talking about is a lady, and she's just right behind me up here. This is really troubling, and I'm not really sure what to do about this. A little background on Lady is that she is a haunted doll that I bought from someone in America. The previous owner said that she bought the doll for her newborn daughter in the 90s, but then hid her in the basement after the doll would fall off of the shelf onto the crib and give her baby daughter nosebleeds. She also said as her daughter got older, her daughter would say that she saw a mean lady. So she did what any normal person would do and put the doll in a different space. And then last year I saw a listing for this haunted doll, so I bought her. And yes, my own personal experiences also show that she is mostly a negative spirit. I don't really pick her up much because it makes me feel sick and my hands get really hot. I've also had these nosebleeds myself. So this is really troubling because I'm not sure what I can do through the screen, and if paranormal activity can emit itself through a screen to other people watching. I guess the only thing I could really do is if I moved her from that position off the shelf and put her to a space on the shelf which is off camera. It is a shame though because I really like the design of the doll. Wait, hang on. I'm gonna rewatch that. I don't think she likes that idea.
This is a human skin sandwich, and these are the 10 most messed up things ever found in fast food. Part 2. Number 5. Human teeth in a candy bar. In 2011, a Texas woman took a bite into a Milky Way candy bar, and to her surprise and disgust, she found human teeth inside of it. She took one bite and it was fine, so she took another bite and she bit down on something crunchy, so she thought, oh, it must have been a peanut. However, she then realized that Milky Bars don't contain peanuts, and it was in fact a tooth. The origin of the tooth was never found. Number 4. The human skin sandwich. At an Arby's in Florida, a man found a slice of human skin in his chicken sandwich. The man said something wasn't right when he bit into the sandwich and found a piece of flesh about an inch long. He said, it looked like I was seeing fingerprints on it. An investigation found that the skin came from one of the restaurant managers who cut his thumb while chopping vegetables and didn't think to discard the contaminated lettuce. Number 3. Mouse in soda. While this one may have been disproved, the details of the defense are arguably more disgusting than the initial claim. In 2009, a man in Illinois said that he'd found a dead mouse in his Mountain Dew and sued the parent company PepsiCo. In their defense, Pepsi argued that the acidity of Mountain Dew is so high that the mouse would have dissolved into a jelly-like substance before the man could have even found it, which is not really the flex that they think it is. Number 2. Lung in fried chicken. In 2013, a customer went to KFC on his day off and ordered a 3-piece chicken box, which upon close inspection contained what appeared to be a lung in their chicken wing. Despite this, he wasn't even offered a refund and was told he should contact customer service. Number 1 is bullets in a hot dog, but before I get to it, if you like these videos and you want to help support the channel, then please just drop a follow. It really helps me out. Thank you. In 2004, a woman in California found 9mm rounds inside of a Costco hot dog by inadvertently swallowing one, which led to severe internal injuries. The woman told police she was eating the hot dog while in the store when she bit down on something hard that the the officers determined to be a 9mm round. However, when she later went to the hospital complaining about stomach pains, the x-ray found there was actually a second bullet inside of her stomach.
We've gotten a lot of new information about the Poohniverse lately, so let's make sure you're all caught up. First, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, there are 2 movies that have come out, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and Blood and Honey 2. And this is an evil take on the Winnie the Pooh story and serves as the starting point for the Twisted Childhood universe. If you need to catch up, you can find both of these movies on Prime. The next thing that we got to see in this universe was the teaser for Bambi the Reckoning. They showed this before Blood and Honey 2, and Bambi looks absolutely feral in this one. And just a little while ago, we got the trailer for Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. I have a more in-depth video about this on my page. But this movie looks dark and is heavily inspired by the French extreme movie Inside. So far, everything they've shown for this movie I think looks really cool. We also know that a Pinocchio movie is coming. We don't know really anything about this one yet. We haven't got any stills or any trailers. All we really know about it is that it's heavily inspired by Chucky, and it's apparently going to be very graphic. Then all of these characters are going to come together Avengers style for Poohniverse Monsters Assemble. And if we don't get Pooh riding Bambi like that, I'm gonna be pissed. Now, this is already a lot of information about this franchise, but we've started getting information already about a Phase 2. Phase 2 is going to start with Honey the Pooh, Blood and Honey 3. It's going to have a larger budget. Kanga and Roo are going to be in the story, and we're also going to get to see a bit of the Huffalumps. Recently, we've gotten confirmation that Awakening Sleeping Beauty and Snow White's Revenge are coming as the 8th and 9th movie in this franchise. But other than their names, we don't know anything about these movies yet. Jagged Edge Productions is all in on the Twisted Childhood universe, and at this point, I think I am too. But let me know in the comments if you're excited about these movies.
Do not panic. Do not move. This is a nationwide announcement. Do not leave your home until further notice. If you have a loved one who is outdoors, do not make any sort of contact. They are most likely infected. Lock all doors and windows. Keep children out of sunlight and in shadows. Do not let them see you. Red lights will be used to inspect homes. If the light senses movement, it will destroy your home along with you and your family. Your safety means nothing to us. It is up to you to survive how you like. If you choose to live, follow our laws. 1. Stay silent.
Alright, so after checking out the trailer to the Blumhouse-produced and directed Leigh Whannell Wolfman, I'm still kind of on the fence of it, but I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt. Because you're definitely right, even though Blumhouse has been kind of on the side this year, I absolutely do trust Leigh Whannell. Because I don't know about you guys, but I actually really enjoyed his take on The Invisible Man. And kind of shocked how well he managed to make this work in a modern day type of scene. Now the real question is that going to work out with the Wolfman? And even though this is technically a costume running around at Halloween Horror Nights and not the official thing, we can get the concept behind it, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of the 2010 remake of the Wolfman, the look of the Wolfman and the film are they're incredible. I mean, only time will tell when we actually get to see the movie. I do absolutely wish this movie the best. Maybe it'll turn out to be an absolute masterpiece, because this thing still looks creepy for 3 a.m. at a Waffle House. But what do you guys think?
Never thought I'd be scared of a knock-knock joke, that's for sure. But after listening to this story last night, I had to go to the restroom, and the whole time I'm in the restroom, I'm like, no one better knock on my door right now. No one better knock on my door. So the guy gets woken up by his girlfriend saying, knock, knock. He looks at the time, and it is 3:27 in the morning, and he is so confused. So he's like, what are you doing? Why are you waking me up saying knock, knock? And her response to all of that is, knock, knock. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, we're asleep. Why are you waking me up trying to get me to play this little game with you by saying knock knock? And his girlfriend's like, just answer me. And she goes, knock knock. And he's like giving up, so he's like, fine, who's there? And she says, it's not me, don't open the door. Turns around and goes back to sleep, and he stays there like, what the fuck? So he ends up going to bed still, and the following morning he wanted to ask her why she did that, and it almost seemed like she was trying to ignore his question, but she ends up telling him, oh, it's just a little prank that I thought of, and like she leaves to work. Like she was trying everything to avoid the question for whatever reason. So they both go to work, they have dinner, and they go to bed, and again he gets woken up by her saying knock knock. He looks at the clock and it's 3:27 in the morning, and he looks at her and says, you already told me this was a prank, why are you doing this again? Let's just go back to sleep. And the only thing she responds to him with is, knock knock. So he's irritated and he's like, what is the point of this? What are you doing? Like, just tell me what's the end game. All she says is just answer, knock knock. And he's like, fine, who's there? And she goes, it's not me, don't open the door. She turns around and goes back to bed. So at this point, the boyfriend is angry because he's like, why is she waking us up over a stupid prank or joke or a game when we both have to work the next day? So that morning when they woke up to go to work, he was like, you need to tell me why you're doing this. And she wasn't going to leave the door like she did the first night, not really giving him a real answer. So he's like, you need to tell me why. What's the end game? What are you doing? However, she gives him the same answer. It's just a game. It's just a game. Like, and he's like, why? And she's like, it's a game. And she just like leaves the house. So as you can imagine, they come home, have dinner, go to sleep, and again she wakes him up at 3:27 in the morning, but this time he's not answering. He's like, why are you doing this? What is the end game? And she goes, just answer, knock knock, just answer. And he's like, no. And she's like, answer, knock knock, answer. And he's like, I'm not answering, why are you doing this? So he's like, you know, you're causing a problem in our relationship. This isn't a joke anymore. You're waking me up in the middle of the night when we both have to go to work. So no, I don't want to play your game. Why are you doing this? You're like creating issues in our relationship. And she's still like, answer, please, answer, knock knock. So he ends up saying, who the fuck is it? Like, who the fuck is at that door? And she goes, it's not me, don't open the door. She turns around and goes to sleep. So morning comes around and he wants to have a serious conversation with her. So he tells her, I don't know how or what kind of conversation I need to have with you to let you know that it's really messed up that you keep waking us up in the middle of the night and it's creating a big problem. And this time she was like apologetic. She's like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to do it. I just thought it was a game. He's angry with that answer because it makes no fucking sense where you keep doing this to him, you know what I mean? So he storms out. He goes to work and all day she's sending him text messages like, I'm sorry, and she's calling him, he's not answering. He's ignoring everything. He mentions that the last text that she sends him is like, I'm so sorry, I know that sleep is important, I promise this is not gonna happen again, please forgive me. But the boyfriend kind of starts feeling bad because they had never argued like this before, so for him to ignore her calls or texts made him feel a little bit guilty. So he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna forgive her and I'm gonna make her dinner because I don't want this to be like the end of us. So he goes home, he makes her dinner, they eat together, and they go to bed. This time, he gets woken up again with a knock knock. He glances at the clock and it's 3:27 in the morning, and he says that he wants to get up and just scream at the top of his lungs. Like, he wants to grab everything in that room and just fucking break it apart. So he says that he turns to look at his girlfriend that's probably next to him, like, say knock knock, but instead she's standing on the bed looking down at him with the craziest smile, saying knock knock. The way he describes this smile, I don't know if you guys ever seen that movie, oh my god, the movie Smile, okay, where it's like extended and it looks freaky. He's like, the smile was very off-putting. It was not like her normal smile. So as he's looking up at her with that weird fucking smile, he says, what are you doing? And in between that smiley face, she's telling him, knock knock. Oh my god, I got chills. At that moment, after she says knock knock again with her weird ass fucking smile, he says that her body started cracking and bending and it was like a scene from a scary movie, and it scared him so much that he jumps out of bed and runs to the kitchen. But once he gets to the kitchen to catch a breath, he hears a knock at the front door. When he hears the knock, his first instinct is like, who is it? And it's his girlfriend's voice saying, love, please open the door. Whatever is in there is not me. Open the door, please. Whatever is in there is not me. Open the door, please. Please open the door. Don't listen to the person that's in there. Open the door. He has no idea what to do because he's like, who's the real one in the bedroom, outside the door? But in that moment, he had no time to do anything because whoever was in the bedroom, his girlfriend, comes out with that creepy smile, running full force towards him. But by the time she's about to get to him, he faints, passes out because of how scared he was. He says that he wakes up 2 hours later and his girlfriend is nowhere in that home. He says that he hasn't seen her since. He even made a police report or a missing person report because he has not heard of her. He has not seen her. Like, she's disappeared and has never returned. Honestly, that scares me more because what if one day she comes back with her creepy ass smile? Can you imagine? Knock knock. Oh, I just scared myself. Anyway, what do you guys think? Because first of all, the first knock knock, if my husband woke up and said knock knock and I'm like, who's there? It's not me, don't open the door. Divorced, bitch, what the fuck?
Kanika Jenkins, the 19-year-old girl that attended a hotel party and was found 2 days later dead in the hotel's freezer. This case is sketchy with a really confusing timeline, but this is everything we know for sure. 19-year-old Kanika went to a party in a hotel room at the Crown Plaza in Chicago with friends on September 8th, 2017. From all accounts, it seemed like a pretty normal party. People were dancing, taking like Snapchat videos, and there was some underage drinking going on as well. As far as other substances go, there is rumors, but I don't want to spread that information, so that's what we know for sure, is that people were at least underage drinking. One thing about this case is there's a lot of hotel security footage. Around like 1-2 a.m., Kanika and her friends are seen in the hallway of the hotel. None of them seem too messed up. You know what I mean? Like, they're not falling down. They don't need help walking. And then about an hour later, Kanika is seen on the security footage again, but this time she's alone and definitely looking a lot more inebriated than she did an hour earlier. Kanika is seen stumbling out of an elevator and then walking down the hallway of a vacant area of the hotel that was off limits to the public because it was under construction. The last time that Kanika is allegedly seen on the hotel security footage, she's in this vacant kitchen that was part of this closed off area. Around like 4:30 a.m., all of Kanika's friends left the hotel with Kanika's cell phone, her car keys, and her car. They then called Kanika's mom to let her know they had no idea where she was. Kanika's mother had no idea that her 19-year-old daughter was even planning to go to a hotel party that night. She thought that her daughter was going bowling and to the movies with friends. Kanika's mother got to the hotel around 5 a.m. to look for her daughter. She spoke with the hotel staff, but she felt very dismissed. She also tried calling 911, but again, she just felt like her concerns for her daughter were being disregarded by everyone. Sadly, if her mother's concerns were taken seriously right away, there's a very good chance that Kanika Jenkins would still be alive today. 2 days later, Kanika's body was found in a hotel freezer in like that vacant kitchen that she was last seen in. Her cause of death was ruled as accidental hypothermia. Alcohol and an epilepsy medication that she did not have a prescription for were found in her system. At the end of last year, Kanika Jenkins' family was awarded $10 million in a wrongful death lawsuit. My overall thoughts are that a lot was done wrong in Kanika's case, and it would have probably most likely been treated with some more priority when she was still missing if she had been white. I think one of the most suspicious parts of this case for me personally is that Kanika found herself in that like vacant part of the hotel. I can understand why people say that she was just drunk and accidentally got there, but that still doesn't make sense to me, or why she was even left by her friends if she was that drunk in the first place. Like, they were all together an hour earlier, none of them seemed drunk, and then they left with her car. That's the most suspicious thing to me. I don't know if I 100% believe that there was foul play involved, but I do think there's enough to suggest it. But please let me know what you guys think, all your thoughts, theories, because you guys are always coming up with things I would never even think to put together in my head. I think one of the strangest parts of this case for me personally is how similar it is to Elisa Lam's case. I've said that from the jump. And if you don't know who Elisa Lam was, she was a young woman who was traveling alone. She was staying at the Cecil Hotel and then she vanished. There was surveillance footage showing her acting extremely strange, and then she was later found dead in the hotel's water tank. To this day, there's no answers for her case or Kanika's case. I think a big takeaway for everyone in this case should be, if you are drinking as a group, you should always stay as a group. You should leave as a group, you should go to the bathroom as a group, or at least like in a buddy system. We see this kind of thing happen time and time again, most recently with Riley Strain. This kind of thing could be avoided and should be avoided. Thank you so much for listening to Kanika Jenkins' story. This has been a case that you guys have been suggesting since like day one of me posting on TikTok. I know it's so frustrating when we feel like we don't have all the answers, but it really means a lot to me to bring awareness and attention to cases that are so sketchy but still feel unsolved in a way. So thank you guys so much for giving me a platform to be able to do that. I love you guys so much. Please leave all your thoughts and theories in the comments for me. I'm going to be reading them all and replying to as many as I can.
Hi, I'm Jacky. Wanna play?
This one actually kind of looks like you. I don't see it. The freak? Its eyes moved. I'm serious, dude. The little figurine's eyes moved. Why are you always messing with me? What the?
This needs to stop. I need help, please.
Whoa, what the fuck, bro?
Creepiest websites on the internet, part 3. Creepypasta, a classic. Unlike most horror stories you may come across with castles and fainting women, most of what creepypasta has to offer comes across as quite convincing. The stories are simple yet effective at presenting modern urban legends that people would message each other about online. It's the birthplace of the famous Slender Man stories and Ben the Haunted Game cartridge. The Deep Web. The Deep Web can be far creepier than anything you could find normally on the web, and a specialized browser can give you access to it. The reason why is because these websites are not indexed by a standard search engine and include sites that have detailed information about the absolute darkest parts of humanity. The things available here aren't even mentionable on YouTube, but trust me when I say it's to be avoided.
Do you believe in vampires? Yes. Let's talk about vampires, because what the
There's been TikToks of people telling stories about how they have met vampires IRL.
Let's get into it. Let's talk about real vampires. Get cozy because I have tea that I am going to spill. I'm going to tell you the truth about real vampires. What are real vampires? The different types of real vampires, how they feed, everything I know about them, studies that have been done on them. And lastly, why I don't just knock the belief in real vampires. Quickly, if you don't know, my name is Megan. I'm a paranormal investigator from New Blood Universe, which is an indie paranormal production company. They're actually making a docu-series about real vampires. I research the paranormal, folklore, cryptids, the fae, the occult, which has led me on my journey to my research on real vampires. So what are real vampires? They are not the same thing as vampires from legend and folklore. They don't turn into bats. They don't suck pomegranate juice from your neck. They don't have an aversion to garlic. And they're not immortal, at least not in the way that we believe in immortality. Real vampires are very similar to your modern day witch. And I will get into that further into this video. Real vampires are essentially everyday people who require subtle energy to survive. So they need more than food, water, sleep, a roof over their head. They need something extra, something like subtle energy. So how do they consume that energy? How do they feed? That's where the different types come in. One type that has been talked about a lot is the sanguinarians or sanguines. These are the real vampires that do in fact consume pomegranate juice. There is lots of different ways that they might feed. Some real vampires will actually use something like a scalpel and have someone who is their donor who consents to giving them their pomegranate juice, and they will use their mouth on that person's body to consume the pomegranate juice. It's hard to say all this on TikTok. That being said, there are real vampires who actually have donors that give them a good amount of pomegranate juice to last them a while. Those real vampires will typically freeze that pomegranate juice and then later put it in something like their tea. I'm going to stick with my Earl Grey. Then we have energy vampires. vampires, and these are real vampires that consume subtle energy. But there can be different ways in which they consume this energy. For instance, there are energy vampires who consume energy schmexually. They need to get down with someone in order to get that energy that they require. Then we have energy vampires who consume energy by doing something that is like a massage. It's similar to Reiki. Imagine that you as a person, you don't just have your blood, your bones, and your organs. You also have this energy within you. And they basically have tethers that they take, and they take your energy with those tethers. It's kind of hard to explain, but I can get more into that if anyone's interested. Many real vampires do have donors that they get this energy from, although some also do what's called ambient feeding. So the idea is that if there's a large group of people, there's basically leftover energy or kind of energy that sits on top of a crowd. A real vampire will take that energy into themselves. Real vampires are typically self-identified as such and as needing something like subtle energy to survive. There have been studies done on them, and I will get into that in a minute. In the vampiric community, consent is essential and is discussed thoroughly, meaning if they are going to be taking pomegranate juice or energy from someone else, they are close with that person or close enough that they are asking that person if they can take those things. It's mutually agreed upon. That being said, real vampires can be good, bad, or somewhere in between and neutral. They're people. Not all of them are going to care about consent. On the flip side, there could be real vampires who do not know they are real vampires and are acting instinctually to take others' energy. Another way that some real vampires feed is emotionally, and that is where things could get sticky in terms of being manipulative or things like that. Although I have met a couple of real vampires who did not care about consent, most of the real vampires that I have met and have spoke to in length really do value consent and are amazing people, some of which are my closest friends. Let's talk about some real studies that have been done on real vampires. There was a man named John Browning from Louisiana State University, and he studied real vampires for 5 years. He originally went into this study thinking that people who identified as real vampires were deranged people, and through his study actually wound up believing that they do have this need for pomegranate juice or subtle energy. He also thought that he was going to meet a lot of really enthusiastic True Blood fans or Dracula fans and stuff like that, but that just wasn't the case. Although there are many real vampires who also are lifestylers and go along with the lifestyle of having prosthetic fangs, wearing dark clothing, dressing goth or punk, there are many who do not dress, act, look like real vampires or vampires in the way that we think of them at all. They just look like your everyday people. John Browning did his study in New Orleans and predominantly of NOVA, the New Orleans Vampires Association. Most of the real vampires within that association during his study were normal in the eyes of society. They had friends, spouses, children, everyday jobs. Through John Browning's study, which I could do a whole other video about, he actually did believe that these people require the pomegranate juice or the real energy to survive. Now, of course, there are people who claim they are real vampires and that require pomegranate juice to survive, and that's just not true. There are people out there who are faking it, who are playing the part, dressing the part, wearing the prosthetic fangs, and saying that this is something that they are that they truly are not. However, a lot of the people who identify as real vampires are not screaming this from the rooftops. They really do keep to themselves and don't want to be judged by others. I have done a video on real vampires before, and a lot of people suggested this disease that they think a lot of real vampires have. I don't know how to pronounce that word. However, a lot of these real vampires do not have that disease. There was another study done by Dr. Williams of Idaho State University, and he found no evidence of psychiatric issues in self-identified vampires. Sorry, you guys, this is getting long. I am going to make a part 2, but if you want to see this whole video right now, it is already up on my YouTube channel. Anyways, that's it for this one. See you next time.
So you know that kid that went viral for his before and after pics because everyone thought he got cloned?
No,
I'll
I
show
don't
you.
think
I'll
so.
show you. You'll probably know. This kid.
Yeah.
He's 3 years old, right? But he was in his backyard playing with his dog, and then he got lost for 2 days.
Yeah.
And imagine you're 3 years old, you get lost, usually in the forest, but surviving 2 days is GG's.
Yeah, he's
right?
probably gonna pass away, whatever.
Exactly. So they sent the whole search team. They found him, but he was 2 miles from originally where he was.
Oh, word?
And when they found him, he was wearing different clothes. You want to see what he looks like after the 2 days? This is before.
Yeah.
After the 2 days?
What happened to him though?
We don't know. That's the thing. When they found him in a shed. Like that's where he camped out or wherever. He survived.
Why does he look like that now?
Maybe because of shock. But imagine 2 miles. That's far.
I mean, to be honest, he was surviving in the wilderness.
Yeah. But
wait. This is when they just found him.
Yeah. This is when he just found him, and this is when.
Okay, that makes sense though. What's that song that goes? You know, in the background.
No.
You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so
sound like the Spider-Man.
Wait, hold on. Let me search it up.
The fucking
So this is going viral on TikTok, and the people are saying like, little did we know this song the whole time was a psyop. You know what a psyop is?
No, what's a psyop?
Pretty much something to like try and control the population.
Nah.
Listen, this song, you know it.
No.
Yeah, this song. Why do you leave me in the middle? Listen carefully.
Okay.
Just listen.
That thing right there. What is
Check
that?
this out, right?
What is that?
So you know that one Justin Bieber song that had something similar?
Fuck.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what I'm talking about.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it had the same one.
It's a Justin Bieber song. It was. Check this out. That was produced by Zed, right? This song, it went through like 14 different artists, fam. For whatever reason, right? They had the song made and they were trying to figure out who would be the best fit. They had 14 different. They have Demi Lovato version. They have Selena Gomez version. They really have, Ariana Grande. Every single artist that was popping at the time, they had them sing it.
Yeah.
Now, the theory goes that they needed this song to try and hypnotize people and try to use it as a psyop to see whether or not they could manipulate the masses using radio music.
Yeah.
This song went through I think 5 different producers. And then finally they took it to Zed. And Zed, the only thing he did differently was add that.
And that's what made it like
Yeah,
what you're
so
saying?
that plays in the background. And it's supposed to be something that you don't notice off a first listen. It's just something that plays and makes you, when you're watching, let's say a TikTok, and a Mr. Beast video, let's say, there's something that gets your attention. It breaks pattern. That's what it does. It breaks pattern.
Okay.
That song is one of the most catchiest songs in the world because it breaks the pattern and makes you listen to the chorus multiple times and manipulates you to almost memorize it.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
You just know
You
it.
just know that song.
And it gets stuck in your head. They played this song. Think about it. They played this everywhere.
Yeah.
This shit was everywhere. Come to know, this song was actually used as a psyop, supposedly by the CIA.
Whoa.
I feel lost.
Lost? What do you mean?